We are back with another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week is already excited. It's Aisha Makara. You can find her at aisha.today as the website. The Joyful Living Guidebook. We're going to talk about that and her artwork and her travels, just playing for a living around the world in Portugal. She's in Norway right now. She's coming to New York. It sounds amazing. She's a trailblazer. She is organizing festivals, doing artwork, and sending her artwork all the way to space. We got a whole lot to talk about this week on the Playful Humans podcast. Here we go.
Don't wait for
All right, Aisha. The joke of the week this week is brought to you by sodium. I was going to tell a joke about sodium, but then I thought, nah. NA. Get it? Okay. That one was for the nerds. This one is for everybody else. Did you hear about the archaeologist that got fired? His career was in ruins. All right, going that way. Archaeologist in ancient ruins. Okay, now, Aisha, tell us about what you have going on here. Let's start with the Joyful Living Guidebook. What's that all about?
I wrote the Joyful Living Guidebook almost 2 years ago. That was the idea after I realized that all my dreams are real. And I'm a dream walker and I'm a doer, I'm a dreamer and a doer. And I decided to share these ideas and my, I call it a thoughtful process in my joyful book. So it was kind of a sharing different ideas and, inspiration and action that people can think for themselves, actually. It's just like a open question book, how we can create our joyful life with my art. And I add my art in this because, I'm just feeling why not have it more playful, and I call it Joyful Living Guidebook.
Well, I love that. And I'm writing a very similar book for Playful Humans about how to play for a living. And it has 52 lessons that I have. And I wanted to do at least one chapter like yours, where it was mostly questions and make the reader do most of the heavy lifting. But I had to outsource. There's only one illustration that I had to connect with my friend Sarah Iverson in Colorado to do. But I am fascinated by all of these lessons. I'm pretty sure we're going to jump into them here throughout the conversation, but take it back. How do you go from being an orphan in Russia to being an artist that's traveling the world and sending it to space? Where did you ever have a real job, or did you get into the arts right away? What was that like?
My background, of course, I went to the school. I want to be an archaeologist actually and journalist, and I didn't get into any of them because in Russia it's a little bit different system. You get to have a score, and I've been doing all my best from the school, and it didn't, my teachers was not supportive, and they just didn't want me to live my dream. So I went to be engineer, and so I was just Google. I was like, Google, who we need right now, because I didn't get where I wanted, and Google said to me, we need doctors and engineers, and I'm like, I don't want to be a doctor because I cannot deal with the blood, and I can be engineer. It's okay what it is to be engineer. So I started to study engineer. It was very easy to get to the school, to the university, and after I started to study and started to travel. I love to travel. I was always been curious. When I was 10 years old or 9 years old, and we have our geography class, first geography class, and I always come to the teacher and say I'm going to travel around the world. I'm going to travel around the world. And teacher was like, of course. And I'm going to all these places that you here in the in the geography class. and everyone just laughing at me. And I don't know why I was saying that, but I really was like confident about that I'm going to travel around the world. And it happened. So I started to travel when I was 15, just around Russia, in Central Asia. And I didn't speak any language that time. I was learning English by my own, like I one was like one of this creative. I'm creative from the since like I'm a baby, always like creating things from my own, imaginary. Um, so yeah, I started to study engineering. I finished my engineering school in Norway. Moved to Moscow. I was like studying, of course, in the small city in Russia. And after I moved, like because I was a political activist and doing like a theater, I was very active, like as a teenager or like as a like young adult. My life was always
Oh.
like very busy. I was having many jobs, and I was like very kind of like entrepreneur in my own, because when I learned how to travel, I want to travel more, and I started to kind of being playful the way we can make money, because I knew like, oh, I'm come back to my city again, so I need about 2 months to recover to get back to the to start it to my life again. And I understood like, oh, this is how much money I need like in these 2 3 months. So I was like saving them on the side, and I was just having the money that how much roughly can spend on my travelings. And if something was like with my house will happen, so I get to go and travel back and have like enough money for like health issues. So I started to kind of like already plan.
Yeah. What did you do for work? Did you ever do any engineering, or did you start doing the playful stuff?
Here
Yeah.
in Norway,
Okay.
I work almost 3 years my life. But of course, I was doing like side jobs, and I was like doing t-shirts, and always like kind of like organizing something on the side and doing the things and traveling. And but I didn't like my engineering job. I was not like happy being engineer because it's very like male. I was working in a field. I was building road tunnels and bridges in Norway, and so I always get to like wear this uniform. And when you're going in the field, and sometimes you get to like work with these machineries. The thing is like I was learning everything on the field, and I get to be engineer because this is what you like
Yeah.
study. This I was with the youngest engineer because after second year, I think like after second year I arrived to Norway. I started to kind of like just knock on the door after 1 year, and after 1 year actually. I started to kind of like knock on the door and asking for a job, like as engineer, and I've been hired by government. And I was working, I was studying, working, traveling,
When
doing
did you first do something creative? When did the art come into it?
I did art all the time. I was like doing it more like a hobby, like it for me was like, I was just doing like a few, maybe five, maximum 3 to 5 artworks a year. And my friends is always buying it from me, like, I mean, they wanted to buy it from me. And I'm like, yeah, whatever you pay me. I don't, it was not about the money. I was just doing it because I feel like to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was working for like in one piece, maybe like a year. And, I was like, I was just expressing it whenever I have a moment, and doing a lot of many other like a creative projects, like postcards. I was working for the volunteering for the Red Cross. I was leader of the Red Cross, so I was doing like a lot of
Wow.
creative works there, and I was doing for the sake of children, like a different like taking care of the summer camps, and in Norway. And like I was always busy, like a busy bee, because I like to do things, and I like to always like being social, and I just like to be active, and
Yeah,
that's
I hear you on that. Me too. And I
doing
didn't like
thousand things.
computer engineering for the same reason, by the way. I went to a big university, and there were 500 kids in the class, and they were all nerdy white guys. And I was like, I don't want to be hanging out with these people either. I need to go get into marketing or the business school or something. Have some more fun. So, when did you do your first event? How did you get into events and festivals?
My events I started to do like also for the Red Cross. I was doing
Oh, okay.
like I was started to do when I was living in Lofoten. I don't know if you know, like Lofoten Islands in north of Norway, like not far away from Tromsø. I was doing the Viking Festival. It's a biking festival, and I was helping like as a volunteer, and we were setting up like a dinners, and we were hosting one day like a king and queen of Norway, like making dinner for them, and we kind of like being just like volunteers. I don't know, like we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
being there, helping out. And whenever I have a moment and whenever I have free time, I'm always say yes to the thing. I'm like, I don't want to sit at home. It's always boring. It's good to like just go because it's not nice out. It's always like a raining or snowing or like cold. So it's good to just go and do some activities and like helping other people to do whatever they do, like volunteering my time after the work. And that was like probably when I started to do more like intentional events. Of course, I was organizing events, political events in Russia as well when I was like a teenager, and we were doing a lot of like events for gathering students, from different universities and kind of like a propaganda. It was more like about the propaganda things. But as a young leader, you don't understand so much the idea of why you're doing it, what you're doing it, because you're just thinking as an orphan, I was doing it for me to just growing my network and actually working towards my like the idea that I created, what is a success for me, in that moment of my life. And because I was thinking, oh, if I'm going to like finish my university, because they transferred me to Moscow, and they said to me like, oh, I was continuing my engineering school, so I knew that they give me like a good job after that. I will be like growing in very like um, productive way for the Russian society, or like in Russian way, because I don't have any parents. I get to do like build myself up by myself.
Mm.
And when I moved to Norway, it was way more easier and it was way more fun because I was doing the things I like. And if I have time, I can do like a T-shirt. I can design a T-shirt, and I was selling it to the tourists. If I was making like first year in university, I was making sushi and pizza deliveries. And I was doing like the sewing things because I was like sewing that time, and I was like doing knitting. So all the time, like just creating things. Gather. We're doing like a dancing school
Yeah.
when I was in university. I did like a Russian class, who wants to learn Russian, like people who wants to learn Russian language or like Russian culture. So that's when I started to kind of like more probably getting into events, but I didn't call it like events. It was just like a kind of like a gathering. I didn't charge for that. Like it was just part of what I was doing, and it was like a space for that. Why not just
It's
gather?
very cool, and it sounds unusual. I don't know if it's unusual around the people that you hang out with and stuff, but I think maybe specifically for Americans, we kind of set up camp and it's big enough country that we can move around America and experience a lot of different things without changing countries. But a question for you might be, especially since you were born in Mongolia and have lived in Norway a long time, do you feel more like a citizen of the world now, or is like Russia still home for you?
No, I think I'm citizen of the world. I haven't been in Russia for many, many, many years. So it's like for me, like Russia was the hard part. I mean, it was like as an adult, as a kid, it was not easy because I got to grow up in a very cold environment, brutal. It was not so much love, not so much like this lovey-dovey kind of like feelings. I didn't experience that. It was very cold, brutal, like more like I call it like a soldier, where you get to survive.
Yeah.
You get to kind of work
Yeah.
through this. And if you, many of my like kids who I grew up with in orphan, many have died until like they're 18 of many different issues of like accident or suicide or like drug abuse or whatever, many different things. It's normal. I mean, I already adult, so I know that it's normal when kids grew up in this environment, they, don't receive that love and support, and it's like not easy for them to grow up and being healthy human being. And I'm not calling myself like I'm this healthy one. I also, of course, I'm broken. I'm in some part of I'm broken. I get to put myself together, kind of like put myself in the more like in the way that I am right now.
Yeah, you can rebuild it, right? I mean,
Myself, yes,
yeah, part of being broken is like a Lego. You get to put the Lego
yes,
bricks back together in the order you want, and pick
correct.
the colors that you want. That's really admirable. That's really an amazing story. And now, to continue this amazing adventure, tell me about the space art project and what happened there.
Well, I 2020, was I moved to America, and that's the time was everyone said to me, "You're crazy! Why are you moving right now?" I was living that time in Portugal, and all my friends was like, "You're crazy! Don't move. Trump is crazy, and everything. You like just going like towards this time when it's like completely crazy in America, and nobody will know. Nobody knew that's the COVID is going to happen. I didn't know either."
Yeah.
And when I moved to Miami, Florida, that moment, I realized I don't have any friends. I was started to do like, of course, like I've been already like successful in Portugal, had my boutique hotel, and I was like kind of like already settled. And I said to myself, I can retire myself for like here in Florida for like next maybe like 2 years, maybe like for like 1 year and something. I didn't know like how much. I was like, oh, maybe I'm spending like $3,000 to like $4,000 a month, and it's enough for me for like so much time, so I can actually like figuring out what I want to do here, if I want to stay here for longer time. But I give myself like 6 months. When COVID happened, many things has started to kind of like go crazy, and I started to do more art, and I started to do more and more art, so I getting into more art,
Wow.
and I started to create more. I started to work with kids, and kids give me more like inspiration. And I started to kind of ask them questions. They asked me question, and we like had this conversation. And finally, I came to the idea of the space, and I said to myself, why not to create this space dreams? So as an artist, so I want to send my art to the space. Why not? Why not to do that? So I created a video where I said I send my artwork to Elon Musk, to Jeff Bezos, and to the Richard Branson, just to their like offices. I create like an artwork,
Yeah.
and I send it to them with a letter that asking them about what I want to create, or like what is my dream, like a kids do the Santa Claus or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what I did, but was a present as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I created like an artwork, like an original one. I sent like in canvases. I went to the post office and sent it, and I did a video. And after that, I asked Elon Musk to send my art to the space. Richard Branson, that I want to do art on his like a rocket. And I said to the Jeff Bezos to send me art or to the space and do art on a space. You know.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, now like Elon Musk, I sent it with a SpaceX. I apply, of course, I applied for the project. It was also like completely mess. Many things happened in my life in that moment, because I was living in a van, like going from the festival to festival, like selling my art, and it was messy. That kind of like a hippie, crazy life where you get to like organize yourself. And I did very well, from my perspective. I did very well. I did like very organized. I knew that this event is work for me. This event doesn't work. And I like festivals because it's always like a fairy tale. You can dress up as you want, and you kind of like be yourself. Nobody judging you. You can just color yourself, your face, just be playful, and have fun. And it just for a few days, like 4 days, whatever, in a week. So yeah, and that's crazy things happen in my life. It's like my van was broken in, everything was stolen from me. And it's absolutely everything. I was just sitting there with no phone, no nothing, was no. And I get to like ask for support. I don't like to ask for support. I like to be in my own kind of my zone, like independent zone. Like figuring out my own things the way I want. And here I don't have like nothing So I get to go and ask for support. And that was not easy for me to start to do that, figuring out how I actually can, like ask for support. And so I end up in the community, living in the community where one of my friends, artist friends, she sent me the Instagram page and said, "Oh, do you remember? I remember that you want to send your art to the space. Here's the like a company who like want to do that. Maybe you should
Yeah.
apply." And I applied, and they and they sent me they selected me. And after they said to me like, "Oh, I get to send them the 8 artworks, like a special size," and I was in a festival that time. I was moving from festival to festival, and I didn't have a place, I didn't have any supplies, nothing, and there was no internet, nothing. And they give me like a 1 week to do that. And this deadline was in 1 week, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how I'm going to do that?" Because I don't know how, like, it takes time to do art. 8 pieces,
Yeah.
you get to create 8 pieces. And I couldn't manage to create 8 pieces. I create 3 pieces. And so I do the pictures. Again, I ask for everything from other people because I didn't have anything myself. So I get to ask for, art supplies. I get to ask for the phone. I get to ask for the computer. I get to ask, like, to take a picture. I get to go and figuring out how we're going to send it from which area, because there's no internet, there's no connection, it's nothing, in that spot. So we get to
Wow.
figuring out, find the internet to go around. And it took me such a like several days, it's on 2 days or 3 days just to send it, like, because it was fail, it cannot go through. And I don't have transport to go, somewhere in the city to do
Oh
that.
my gosh. Yeah.
We've been in the middle of the forest, it's like, it's crazy. But I managed to send these 3 artworks. And I managed to be selected. They selected 2 of my artworks. And of course I had like an interview, it was like a first, when they selected me, they had an interview. And after they, like, asked me to send their like artworks. So yeah, and eventually my artwork was being engraved in a golden plate and sent it to the space with the SpaceX transformer. And that's, it happened like last year,
That's
2020.
amazing. I learned so many lessons just from that story, but I think, the
Never give
first
up.
thing that comes to mind is most people would have just given up and been like, "Oh, it's too hard. The deadline's too short. They asked for 8. I don't have 8," or I tried to send it and it didn't go through. Like that would have been enough to stop most people. But I'm wondering if you have some other lessons from us. If there were the top, 3 to 5 lessons, maybe from the Joyful Living Guidebook or just from all of your travels and experiences, what would you tell other people that are maybe afraid to play for a living, or they've always wanted to do this and they just haven't quite done it yet?
Well, I came from nothing. I used to say to people, I don't have wealthy parents. I don't have any parents. And it doesn't stop me to live my dream life, because I love to dream. And when I being free, from all of that. And I decided, okay, now I can create whatever I want. I'm completely free. Nobody will, like, right now, like, say to me what I get to do, what I cannot do. So I started to just create, and I started to think like what I want to do. And money is abundance of the money. Don't be afraid about money. It's like so much money in this world. And that's people very scary every time that, "Oh my gosh, I don't have money." Like, don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you have. And we have ourselves. I was asked all the time, and in fact, people ask me, "You don't have this, you don't have this." I said, like, I have myself. That's enough. That's more than enough. And that's, until we're here, we can play, we can do whatever we want, we can always, of course, life is up and down, but the thing is,
Yeah.
it's our choice. It's a choice to choose to live joyful life and get clarity what it is. For me, my joyful life is, because what is joyful life for me, it's completely different what is joyful life for you. And I believe everyone is different of, like, get clarity on their joyful life. And also, one of my advice is always enjoy your struggles. Struggles, it's great because they give you opportunity for the growth and be better. Because every time when you're going through struggle, enjoy it, because that's so great. It's grounding you more towards understanding that you live life. You're feeling more alive. You're feeling that pain, you're feeling that growth, because growth is painful. Like when tree is growing, it's painful for the tree. I don't know, but I just think like the growth is not easy. And we see.
Yeah, I love all of that. I think the really powerful lesson in that to me is that I think the fear of losing things is what people are afraid of. They're afraid of the failure and not having any money, or not having the family, or not having a place to live. And what I'm hearing from you is like all of those things happening are what free you up to do whatever you want. Then you're like, all right, I've already hit rock bottom. You did it at a very young age. You're like, it can't get any worse. So the rest of my life is up. The rest of my life is a joy because you got there. And then rather than letting it jade you or feeling sorry for yourself and other things, you just said, all right, well, great. Like, you've experienced something that very few people have, and that has given you the freedom to go and live the life you choose without expectations or without, the pressure of, doing what your parents think you should do and all that other stuff that can be seen as a blessing.
Exactly. That's what I used to say to the people. I've been free since I'm less than 1 year and a half. Since my mother decided to abandon me, I've been free on my own. I got to decide what I got to do with my life from that day. Yes, of course, it was not easy. I was crying, I was missing. I was doing through all this process like kids do. And one day I was also asking for the love from adults around. I was also was crying, and it's normal process. I was working with the kids who's in Orphan when I was living in Russia. I was because I'm from that part. When I started to be student, I went to the orphan or taking care of the orphan.
Yeah.
Or after that, my colleagues from the university went with me as well. Because they were feeling that I'm doing something good, but I was doing just what I wanted to do when I was a kid. I want to have someone adult coming and just talking to me sometime, and just ask me questions. This is what I did when I get adult. I said, this kids probably needs me right now because they want someone to ask them questions, to ask them, how's your week go? How do you feel today? How, do you want to hug? Like something simple thing. Do you want to something? Do you want to have a tea together? Do you want to have cookie? So I was bringing this cookie. I was doing like a cake sometime. I was doing like this simple thing that I want as a kid. Nobody was there for that, and I've been there for these kids. Because that's what I wanted when I was a kid.
That's so powerful. And I want to ask you now. It's perfect timing. Do you want to play a game?
Yes.
There you go. I love that you're mentioning all the things that you wanted to do with an adult, and play a game. I'm sure was on that list at some point. So we're going to play Survey Says. We surveyed 100 people. Their top answers are on the card. All you have to do is get 2 out of 3 right, and you win the game today. All right. And we're playing with Aisha Makara. Go to Aisha.today is her website, and check out the Joyful Living Guidebook on Amazon. Okay, here's question number 1. Name something you hate to do when it's cold. Growing up in Russia, I'm sure you have a long list, but what's at the top of the list? What's something you hate to get into when it's cold?
I hate to mock the snow. You get it every time.
Yes.
That snow, I hate it, and you get to kind of put a lot of clothes on you because it was so cold, and I hate it as well because I didn't like to wear on me so many. It's so heavy, every time when you're putting extra because it's always cold, and I didn't like to stay at home. I hate it as well. So this is why
I'll give you that. You named, I think, all of these, except for maybe getting into a cold car, having to scrape the windshield on the car and everything, and a getting into a shower or a tub when it's cold and cold water.
Okay.
It also made the list, but you definitely win on that one. You got the top 5. We got winter wear, we got the snow, and cold, getting out of bed when it's cold.
Cold,
okay.
Yeah.
Name something you have in your house right now that does not work. What's something that you have that does not work?
Right now, light. My electricity doesn't work right now, and like I use the just lamps because the main electricity doesn't work.
Wow, that is unusual. I don't know if I can give you that point though. That's not a very common answer. We were looking for like a television, a fan, a clock, a computer, a radio, or a VCR, DVD.
But of course, my hair dryer.
Yeah,
That's yeah, as well.
I don't have that problem. All right.
Exactly.
Last one. This is for the win. Name something you have more of now than you did 10 years ago. What do you have more of now than you did 10 years ago?
Gadgets.
Ooh. All right, I'll give you that one. We got things, clothes, shoes, and we'll count gadgets in there. Money, weight, wisdom, and kids are the other top answers.
Wisdom, that's a good one. Yeah, but I was thinking about like on the materialistic or like a stuff thing, like the more stuff. That's like I didn't have so many. Like right now, I have 2 phones. I have computer. I have iPod. I have like computer there. I have 1 extra computer. It's like I didn't have it 10 years ago. So many gadgets, for example, and it's like right now, it's like you cannot live without that. I mean, at least in my life.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, you win a free 30 seconds here. How can we help you, or how can you help us here as we wrap up the podcast?
So I feel like we can help each other by sharing our podcast or like your podcast and the social media. This is how I can contribute, and you can share by communicating my website and about the Joyful Living Guidebook that's just published in all platforms right now around the world. So I'm very proud of it, and just a smile.
I love it.
Smile and play.
Aisha, AISHA.today is the website, Aisha Makara, and check out the Joyful Living Guidebook. It's on Amazon. And I would say just go to her website and check out the artwork. I know artwork is subjective, but she makes really cool things that are very pleasing to the eye. It's not weird, esoteric stuff that you would be like, oh, God. And very cool pop art about road trips and galleries. And she has expositions, and she's coming to New York and LA and doing all kinds of cool stuff. So I think we should all go support her, Aisha.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Until next time, go out there and have some fun. If you can't be good at it, no matter what you do. And share this podcast with somebody that you think needs to hear it. Subscribe to the show. And, you mentioned we all play differently. We have a Playful Humans quiz on the website, playfulhumans.com/quiz. There are 10 different play personalities. Find out which ones you are and how you can lean into it. Go play for a living.
Okay. Play for a living. Namaste.
Bye, everybody.
For tomorrow, live for today. Keep on chasing